everyone. Welcome. My name is Dean Steckman. I will be your host for today. And thank you all for being on time. Thank you all for being present. First of all, welcome again. And we welcome you on behalf of Repair to Commitment, the last event in Repair's 2020-2021 virtual series. Our topic is transformation, conversations, and storytelling about healing and social action. Some of the stories are being recorded, sorry. However, only the speakers will be seen and heard on cameras. Audience members are muted, but you are welcome to cheer and acknowledge the storytellers in the chat after each story. First of all, we want to acknowledge, Repair wants to acknowledge that the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of Tongva and are grateful to have the opportunity to work for the Taraktam in this place. We pay our respects to the Hanukaptam, and I'm sorry, indigenous peoples and elders. Sorry about that. Thank you, Beth, for clarifying in the chat. And our relatives and relations, past, present, and emerging. So first, we're going to start with, just give me a second. And I will be reading the bios of each of our storytellers before they speak, so you can get a little background before they go ahead. Okay. At this time, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, our storyteller, sorry. So we are moving on to Jorge L. Rivera. Jorge L. Rivera is a Puerto Rican filmmaker with a BFA from Miami International University of Art and Design. Jorge is a 13-year veteran in the film and TV industry. He has worked with major networks, Netflix, NBC, and Universal Studios as an assistant director, stage manager, segment producer, and COVID compliance officer. Recently, the American Film Institute recruited him to mentor students for future projects. One of the most life-changing projects he worked on was a documentary called Lost in America about homeless youth across the country. Outside of his career, Jorge co-founded Puerto Ricans in Action with his partner Nicole Hernandez, whom he met in downtown LA protesting for Puerto Rican independence in 2016. Jorge is a budding Buddhist and a Somali, developing personal rituals that ground him every day. He is also a proud cat papa to Moose, their adopted cat. Lastly, he is a proud son, big brother, and uncle to 6 nieces and nephews. So please join me in welcoming Jorge to go ahead and share his story with us.
Hi, Dean. Thank you so much for that. I just want to say thank you to Beth and to Dean for having me on here and sharing the story. I want to thank my partner for just being awesome through this whole process and guiding me along the way. And I'm going to go right into it. One of my approach for this story was to break it into 3 parts. Infancy, teenager, and then adulthood, because for me, commitment takes a lifetime to become part of you. So here we go. Yes, I can increase. Can you hear me better? Okay, there we go. Bendición, mami. That's how every call, encounter, and visit begins with my mother. She was 16 when she got married, 17 when she became pregnant with her first son, and 18 when she became a mother. That's my mother. At 7 months, when I entered this world, I was surrounded by life and death. The doctor told my mother that I wasn't going to make it. Sorry, guys. Can you guys hear me? At 7 months, when I entered the world, I was surrounded by life and death. The doctors told my mother that I wasn't going to make it. Family members told my mom to let me go. I wasn't eating. I was allergic to almost everything, and I was having a hard time breathing. My mother, on the other hand, took it upon herself to make sure I lived. She sat there day in and day out, showed me unconditional love as I laid inside the incubator box. She taught me something then that I wouldn't know I needed till later in life. In my first year and only year living in Puerto Rico, I had an uncle who never doubted me being on this planet. That was my Tío Mon. Tío Mon was this tall, lanky man, dark leather skin, with one lazy eye that gave him this distinguished look. He would wear his brown slacks, his guayabera, always untucked and pressed like it was brand new. This was his outfit, whether he was on the farm or if he was at home. Tío Mon would make his way down to the house after working all morning at the farm. He would grab 2 cups of coffee, lunch for him and my great grandfather. And most importantly, he would take me. He would wrap me up around his chest with a cloth sheet, always facing out so I can see the world. Um, they would have lunch and work the fields, and along the way, along with me wrapped around him, he would walk me through the process as if I understood anything he was saying. After a few hours, he would change my wet diaper and bring me back to my mother wrapped in a banana leaf. I was a jibaro, a farmer, before I even knew the meaning of the word. He cared for me. My tío Mon dealt with drug and alcohol addictions. Years after my mother and father left Puerto Rico, I experienced my first encounter with death. Tío Mon took his own life. I was 6 years old. I didn't understand anything that any of it. I didn't understand when my mother told me that he was fighting demons, demons that defeated him. This was a man that I only ever saw living in happiness, and now he was gone. After living in the projects most of our childhood, our mom got us a house. This house was everything. It was where we lived our teenage years and where we would develop lifelong friendships. In 1998, with those friends, we started a rap group. Like many inspired by Nas, Tupac, and Wu Tang, we spent every day together making music. We protected and kept each other out of trouble. We became brothers. During that time, the most outspoken one, Jay, he lost his mother while we were in high school. After that, he began to go down a path of depression that he couldn't get out of, and nothing we did helped. One night, while I was sleeping, he called me. He sounded sluggish, and he told me that he loved me and that I was his brother. I knew right away that something was wrong. I love you too, and I'm always here for you, I responded. We both stood quiet, and for a moment, we both stood quiet for a moment. Then I asked him if he was doing something that he shouldn't be doing. And he didn't respond, and he just hung up. I immediately called his sister over and over until she finally picked up the phone. And I shouted, "Go to the house, he's hurting himself." I sat there calling and calling him back, but he never did answer. My heart was racing. I ran down the stairs. My heart was racing. I ran down the stairs and I woke my mother up. I was crying and she went into full protective mode. I told her what was happening. Then my phone rang and I picked it up. It was his sister. She got to him. She got to him on time and he was being rushed to the hospital. The next morning, we sat at the hospital waiting for him. When my mother turned to me and Donnie, my brother, and said, "Don't be mad at him." I thought to myself, what? Of course I'm mad at him. She went on, "He's your brother, right? Treat him with treat him like he's one of your brothers and treat him with love." When we walked into that room, my mother was right. There was no way I could be mad at him. So we showed him love the only way we knew how. We cracked jokes and even made fun of him. Yeah, that's how us East Coasters show love. That's how we show someone that we need them. Within minutes, I was the one getting made fun of. They even called me a snitch for calling his sister. I couldn't stop laughing. This was different. I began to see the power of love and how it can change a person, the environment, and your thoughts. Years later, I moved to Florida to study filmmaking. While there, I learned a lot about myself. I learned what different friendships were. I learned to be alone and enjoy my own company and what it really meant to follow a dream. I was making movies, writing scripts, working with actors, creating movie magic. I had never thought that someone like me would get these opportunities. After graduating, it was time to make a decision to either return to the East Coast or go to California with a friend. I was feeling homesick, so I called my mom and I told her that I was thinking of going back to New York, back to Connecticut, to be closer to her and my brothers. To my shock, her response was, "No, go to Los Angeles, go with your friends, go with your friend and find work. Because if you come back home, you're only gonna get caught up in everyone else's business. Follow that dream." A couple years in, and life in California was falling into place. Even my baby brother, who's 11 years my junior, was talking about moving out my way. Um, but life would knock the wind out of me. I got a call from my mom one day, and she was bawling. She was a mess. Her asthma was flaring up. She can barely get a word out. But when I did make out the words, I was also in shock. My baby brother had been arrested. He wasn't coming home. I've seen my mother go through some hard times, but nothing like this. This was breaking her. We faced losing him for up to 10 years. I stared at walls for hours. I cried. I couldn't sleep. I had nightmares. I punched things in the apartment. I mostly thought about my mother and what she gave to make sure I didn't die in that incubator box, to only have another son sent into a box, to be told that he wasn't worth saving. He was only 19. We hired a lawyer and we got the sentence down to a year. Nothing less, said the state. So we all lost that year together. I worked through my pain, doing what I could to make his time easier: money, books, magazines. And no matter what I was doing, I would stop everything to take his 15-minute calls. We talked about his thoughts on whatever he was reading, what he was going through. We would He would draw on the envelopes of letters he would write me. I didn't even know he can draw. Um, Mommy's words from the time our friend Jay laid in the hospital would run through my mind whenever I began to feel angry and blame him. Don't be mad at him. He's your brother. I thought about happiness a lot that year. I mostly wanted my baby brother to know happiness and to trust that it would come. That was the longest year of our lives. From from the day I was born and told I wasn't going to make it, mommy showed me the way through life is through love and joy. In Puerto Rico, we greet our elders with a request for bendición, a blessing. And no matter how much things seem to be falling apart, mommy always gave the best blessings. A bendición that uplifts your spirit and fills your heart with love. That is why when I think about all the things I've been afraid of in my life, there has always been one thing that I never doubted, and that was my commitment to happiness and love. And I thank her for that. Bendición, mommy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jorge, for sharing your story and being vulnerable with us as well. We really enjoyed hearing that, your story.
Thank you so much.
So next, we're going to move on to Fran Chalin. And so I will go ahead and read her bio at this moment. If you have comments for Jorge, please go ahead and or put them in the chat box. Prior to her work as a hospice chaplain, Chalin served as cantor to LA's LGBTQ congregation, Beth Shaim Shadashim, House of New Life, 1993 to 2008. Since then, she's been a hospice chaplain with Vistas Healthcare. Chaplains remind people that despite their illnesses, they are whole, that they aren't the subtotal of their illnesses. Chaplains are story holders for the ill, the dying, and the loved ones left behind. We hold their stories and reflect them back. Chalin sings for LA's klezmer group, They Just Don't Go in Health, and is the conductor for Los Angeles Yiddish chorus. Zinjin for Shalim, singing for peace. So please join me in welcoming Fran to share her story with us.
Thank you, Dean. Thanks for all you're doing to make this happen. And to my fellow storytellers who shared the depth of commitment, and to Beth, who knows that stories have the ability to save people's lives. Throughout my decade plus as a carpenter and a house builder, I never said I couldn't do anything. And while there were times I said I could do things that I'd never done before, most of the time I would figure it out. But I did learn the hard way that if you don't properly secure roof trusses, in this case, 50 feet wide by 18 feet high wooden triangles, if you don't properly secure them, all it takes is one mighty wind and they fall against each other like gigantic dominoes. And now, as a hospice chaplain, I'm always in situations I have never been in before. Now I have this prayer, just help me get out of my own way. And it helps. It makes it easier to be present, to shut up, to show up. 2 months into my chaplain internship, I'm asked to visit Mr. Garcia. He's 59 years old and dying of throat cancer. And his hospice nurse told me he's depressed. Well, he has a right to be depressed. He's dying. The nurse also said he's nonverbal. So how is it that she knows what he's feeling? And if he's nonverbal, how will I know what are his needs? On my way to his room, I noticed that almost every door to every room is open. Some patients are talking to visitors, some are staring at a TV, and some are just staring. The hall has that smell of sick, the smell that commingles with the disinfectant used to clean that smell. The halls are beige with accents of tired gray green. And if it saps my energy in a short walk down the hall, what does it do to the people in these rooms or to the people here to take care of them? 2 doors away from Mr. Garcia's room, I'm wondering how I can get out of this visit. Maybe he'll be asleep and then I can chart that at least I tried. The prayer I say, the one that helped me get out of my own way prayer, not helping at the moment. I try replacing it with everybody get out of my way so I can leave. I stand outside Mr. Garcia's room and I look in. He's in bed A, right near the door. There's a curtain that separates him from his roommate in bed B. Bed B has visitors and the TV on. Behind the curtain, a man says, "Judge Judy is taking no prisoners today, huh, Dad?" And the patient in bed B makes a grunty noise. Bed B's visitors are murmuring to each other. It's not really the curtain that provides the privacy. It's the noise and the activity that comes from the other side of the curtain. "Hi, Mr. Garcia. My name is Chaplain Fran, and I'm wondering if I can come in and visit for a bit." Ugh, great, Fran. The guy can't talk. Great start. Great. Mr. Garcia is gaunt. His nurse said he's barely eating anymore, and his throat cancer is spreading. Gravity is pulling the skin from his face down his neck, and his neck skin is resting on the pillow. But as sick as he is, he raises his arms again and again, and he blows kisses at this picture of Jesus taped to the wall across from his bed. Kiss after kiss after kiss. The skin on Mr. Garcia's arms is hanging like cheese that slowly slides off of a hot pizza. I sit in a chair near Mr. Garcia, feeling useless and in the way. And I'm staring at this picture, and all I want to do is ask Jesus what I should do. Not part of my training as a Jewish chaplain, Jesus is not my inspiration. But what is inspiring is that in this colorless place of sick and smell, this dying man is blowing kisses. I don't have to ask Jesus what to do. And really, at this moment, this man doesn't need my help. But I can rejoice with him. I get up and I pull the curtain so that Mr. Garcia and I are in our own flowy white tent. And I sit back in my chair and I start blowing kisses with him. Mr. Garcia watches me and he's got that shy smile of a boy who didn't expect the girl to say yes. We go back to blowing kisses and watching them land right on the cheeks of Jesus. I move my arms to match Mr. Garcia's, and there's this look on his face, the look of love for this angel of his. I throw another brief look at Jesus. What would Mr. Garcia do if he could? Might he dance? I get out of my chair and I start swaying with my arms above my head. And for a brief moment, I wonder if the people around bed B can see my arms. I'm circling around Mr. Garcia's bed, swaying and dancing and blowing kisses to the guy on the glossy paper. I've done this dancing thing before. I was on a job site in the middle of Fire Island. It was me and 3 men rebuilding a home. We lived in a trailer out in the middle of nowhere for 3 months, and the trailer was flimsy and claustrophobic. One night I told the guys I was heading out for a walk, and they nodded, barely looking up from the TV. The air outside smelled like ocean and scrub pine. And through the trees, the moon made this lace shadow on the ground. And well, there again, I was called to dance. No Jesus, just wind and ocean and moon. Arms up, running, dancing, sweating, and laughing at what the whole thing must have looked like. When I got back to the trailer, the guys looked up when I opened the door. Nice walk? Yeah, it was, I said. They nodded and went back to the TV. I wonder, did any of them ever slip out and let the moon take them into the clearing of the woods? Mr. Garcia is beaming at me and Jesus, and his arms are making bigger movements now. I'm his legs, he's my conductor. I feel like we're actually in a tent with drum beats under our feet. How long did we move like this? Long enough for us both to feel the rhythm. Sweaty now. I stop near the edge, near the head of his bed, and he reaches for my hand. He looks at Jesus and he smiles. And Jesus seems to smile too. See what happens when you get out of your own way, Fran? You dance. 3 days later, Mr. Garcia's daughter, Anaya, called me and asked if I would attend her father's care meeting. She was concerned. These are regularly scheduled meetings consisting of the patient's medical care team and their family. When it was Anaya's turn to speak, she said, "Could the cancer be spreading to my dad's brain? I think he's losing touch with reality. He said something that really worried me." I thought he couldn't speak, I said. "Oh, his hospice nurse must have told you that. He doesn't like her, so he pretends he can't talk." Anyway, he told me that there was a dancing angel around his bed, and he told me that they danced together and they both blew kisses at Jesus. "Well, that is concerning," said the facility director. "Maybe we can add medication to help with the hallucinations," said the doctor. "Oh, he's fine," I assured her. "That was me." She turned to me, and the look in her eyes and the thank yous. Thank you. He needed that. A decade later, I am meeting with chaplain students to talk about my experience. And here's what I've learned, that no matter the education, the skills we learn, no matter the time we spent doing them, chaplains will never know what each new situation will be, what each new person will need. And still we have to shut up, show up, and wonder. It's about getting out of our own way. Otherwise, it's not just the roof trusses that'll fall on us. We might miss out on the dance.
Thank you so much, Fran. That was such a beautiful story. Very inspiring as well. So next we will hear from Krystyl Wright. Krystyl Wright, LCSW, has a graduate from Humboldt State University in sociology and a master's of social work from the University of Southern California. Krystyl provides clients with a core understanding of psychodynamic framework. However, the goal has become guiding and coaching to help individuals towards a life worth living 365 days and beyond. She provides patients she provides patients with skills that focus on an in-depth experience with culture and gender sensitivities who are suffering from moderate to extreme psychiatric issues. She offers a range of evidence-based therapy including but not limited to dialectical behavioral therapy (DBT) and interpersonal therapy (IPT). Krystyl is the co-founder of Lot 11, originated in Compton, California, a community conscious urban apple apothecary brand. Lot 11 encourages self care products through fair trade and uses non toxic ingredients while doing meaningful work through our 11 essential ways of living. So please join me in welcoming Krystyl Wright to share her story with us.
Thank you, Dean, so much. And thank you to the storytellers before me and Beth for this amazing opportunity. While we're on the talking about commitment, obviously, because it's COVID, the world has completely changed right before our eyes. And I think that none of us would have ever anticipated our whole entire existence at this point is through Zoom. And with that being said, I've had to make a lot of pivots. And so one of those pivots, being a practicing clinical psychotherapist, I don't take any insurance. And I think as we all probably know, or now you will know, is that being able to access quality mental health services is that you really need to either A, pay out privately, or making sure you have an amazing healthcare plan. And for many of the Americans and other people in the country is that there is no access, and having something consistent or having a clinical care team is not always feasible, specifically when it comes to mental health, if you're not dealing with any comorbidity, meaning a medical condition and also a mental health condition. And so because of COVID, I got laid off, right? Who would have ever thought a practicing clinical social worker right in the city of Inglewood getting laid off? I was the only practicing clinical social worker for the entire district, and there were 18 schools. So I was like, oh, I'm fine. I'll be okay in my office and still serving the students. Well, that didn't happen. Pink slip came in the mail, and I was like, oh, shoot, what am I going to do? My livelihood, what about these kids? Heck, what about the world? Everything is falling apart. I'm like, Krystyl, get a grip. So quickly utilizing all of the skills, all of my training that I knew, I was experiencing the world at the same time my clients were. And that was very different, I'm sure, for all of us. It's like, wait a minute, most of the time I have it together and now I'm falling apart at the seams. So I was like, wait a minute, what can I do? And I have a business. My mom is my business partner, and the company is Lot 11, and we make self-care products. And so I'm like, okay, I don't take insurance. I'm out of a job. How can I use this last check to make a go of it? I've been in business for 6 years. So I'm like, okay. And again, all of our business was pretty much in farmers markets and festivals. There was an established website. I didn't use it. I probably had 1 or 2 sales on the website every 4 months. It was just for show. And then I'm like, what am I gonna do? Completely freaking out. I'm like, okay, get a grip. You use your community. Your community is how you got here, and the community is gonna allow you to thrive. But with that being said, is that as much as you take from the community, what are you gonna give? And what are your commitments and what are your values? And what we valued, which is why there's 11 essential ways of living, is community and social justice. So I knew how to make candles, so we make candles. And so I thought about it. I'm like, most of the clients I serve may have an HMO, maybe some Medi-Cal, maybe some Medicaid. and maybe they see their therapist once every 4 months, that's not going to work. You're talking about real people having real life traumas who needed to see someone consistently. Well, hey, thank goodness for the Trojan crew. All of my colleagues, I'm like, hey, you guys down to help me out? They're like, yeah, how much are you gonna pay? I'm like, okay, hold that thought. Send me your invoices. Let me know what that cost is and I'll figure some things out. So there I go. I created a candle and it has an essential oil called vetiver. Vetiver helps you with sleep. And so I utilized some other scents in there as well and really made a beautiful candle called Inglewood. And Inglewood was about our commitment to serving the students who attend Inglewood schools. So what I did was a percentage, which is 15% of the sales of that candle, goes towards providing therapy services to those students. We're not a nonprofit. I have a roster of 10 colleagues of mine. I pay them their full rate, and that's how we provide the students in Inglewood with their mental health services. So I'm like, okay, now I'm inundated, right? Can you imagine, like, all of my colleagues in Inglewood, they're like, Krystyl, we have like 50 kids. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, everything is happening so fast. I'm not really prepared. And so I had to go back to my values. Like, okay, it's okay, Krystyl, you don't have to service everyone. And you also don't have to give up because you're overwhelmed. So from there, I think sometimes we think our commitments have to be these, like, iron in the wood kind of stitched in, like they can't change, but they can. And so one of the things that didn't change was our values. And our value was about social justice. And when you talk about access, you're really talking about, are there people disenfranchised? Are there people who do not have access? Are there people who are restricted from having access? And one of the things, being a Trojan, I've had the pleasure of working for amazing organizations and working amongst people who have access, who pay privately to have quality mental health services. And why not students who I know are gonna make impact in this world have the same access? And so that is my commitment as a practicing clinical social worker and also as a co-founder of Lot 11. So thank you all for your time and for listening to my story.
Thank you so much, Krystyl. And thank you for your work that you do in the community and your commitment to social justice. And it looks like you got some customers too. So if you want to buy a candle, I want to as well.
Thank you.
So next we will move on to